Afghan ballot fraud creates dilemma for U.S. The Obama administration now fears that the Afghan election may not produce a clear winner until next spring, which officials said could throw President Obama's policies into flux or question by leaving Afghanistan without a credible leader for months. The prospect of a runoff election is growing after President Hamid-Karzai was awarded 54.6% of the votes in the much disputed presidential election last month. But even as American officials noted that the Afghan authorities had begun printing ballots for a second round of voting, these officials said they were worried that a runoff could not be held before Afghanistan's fierce winter starts in November, and such a long delay could deepen the U.S.'s troubles in Afghanistan at a time of deteriorating security there and mounting skepticism in Washington about whether the United States should deploy thousands and thousands of more troops to Afghanistan. For the White House, the winter of political uncertainty in Afghanistan may be the worst of all possible outcomes or situations. Officials and outside experts say there is already vocal disenchantment with the war across the country and among Democrats in Congress. We are well aware that we have 12 to 18 months to start to show progress, said a senior administration official who asked not to be identified in order to freely discuss internal policy. The clock starts to run out after that, although the clock is already probably running. Mr. Karzai's final vote tally was significantly smaller than administration officials expected, even if he needs to clear only 50% to avoid a runoff. But widespread accusations of ballot stuffing and other fraud have led election authorities to order an examination of ballot boxes in 10% of polling places. If some votes are invalidated, that could push them below the 50% threshold. While the United States has warned Mr. Karzai not to declare victory before the ballot investigation is complete, administration officials acknowledge that he remains the most likely winner in spite of the corrupt balloting. His main competitor, Abdullah, a former foreign minister, has finished a distant second with 27.8% of the vote. Administration officials expressed surprise that Afghan authorities were laying the groundwork for a second round of voting, even before the investigation of the first round had been finished. But the calendar works against holding a runoff before the spring. The country's brutal weather and forbidding geography would make going to the polls extremely difficult. There is an exquisite dilemma here, said Bruce Riedel, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, who helped develop the administration's policy. The strategy requires an Afghan government that is credible and legitimate, both to get Afghans to support it, to get Americans and their allies to help. The strategy can't work around a South Vietnamese-style government. A runoff would be preferable to a discredited first-round Karzai victory, Mr. Riedel said. But if the vote is put off until next spring, he said, the administration will have to deal with a leadership that will be much less effective in helping with American priorities. What is placed on hold is any kind of political reconciliation or trying to split the Taliban, if that could be even possible. It's very hard to do that because you need the Afghan government as your partner. The Obama administration had also planned to begin a major new anti-corruption drive in Afghanistan once the dust settled from the elections. That strategy would include assigning more civilians to the American embassy in Kabul to work with the Afghan government on reforms of the legal system, as well as looking for ways to crack down on the drug trade, or drug smuggling, that has fueled the resurgence of the Taliban, so they say. None of this was going to be easy to begin with, in part because Mr. Karzai has proved resistant to Western attempts to rein in corruption. Before the election, he struck political deals with Afghans who have been accused of drug smuggling. That's not good. Not really. Kind of like a double standard is going on here some kind of way. Administration officials had hoped that in a second term, free of worries about his political future, Mr. Karzai would be more amenable to a Western-style anti-corruption campaign. Well, that's not really going to work or happen, is it? No, not likely. The Afghan government is corrupt. Very corrupt. And the election is a fraud. They should redo it. Of course, as soon as possible. But like they say, it could take a long time. This is actually a real mess. Perhaps a disaster in the making. The plan was to hit the ground running right after the elections with the anti-corruption work, another senior official said. Now it is not clear the administration could begin such a campaign, as long as the election results remain uncertain. Western officials said the best they might hope for is some kind of political deal, but that doesn't look very likely either, although nobody knows for sure. And that too may be too much to hope for. In the meantime, Afghanistan faces a tense wait, with the risk of an increasing Taliban insurgency. Elements of Mr. Obama's strategy can theoretically continue without a political resolution. The Pentagon can conduct operations against the Taliban and train more Afghan forces. But even the basic question of whether to send more American troops has been caught up in an uncertainty over the election. At a news conference, Defense Secretary Robert M. Gates noted that the administration's original timetable called for assessing the need for more troops after the election results were in. There's no question that the nature of the election in Afghanistan has severely complicated the picture for us, he said. Anyway, once again, this is turning into a real mess in many different ways, so it appears to be. A huge mess, some kind of way. And, once again, what really is there to win in Afghanistan? How much longer could it possibly take? When will they know they have won? These are the same questions over again. It's not looking that good. Not in Afghanistan. Anyway, there's much more going on here. Something much bigger. Everything is connected. It's happening all around the world. And these are more signs of the end times transition days, as the transition is an ongoing process. It's happening daily all around the world. There are many, many signs.